Fani Willis goes back to church and she's pleading for prayers. We're going to see what she says. We're also going to see that the mayor of Atlanta, this guy called Andre, is supporting her. So Fani is circling the wagons, going to the congregation, getting love and adulation, getting prayers, and having a lot of the local politicos support her. This comes after her testimony in Fulton County in the disqualification hearing. Now, we have an article from local counsel, a local criminal defense attorney, who says this whole thing might have been so bad it might be fatal to the case. He's not a Trump fan. We're going to dig into that and get reaction to Fani's campaign question on cash, whether she took cash out from the campaign, and we'll see what else is happening in the trial and whether this is going to be enough for disqualification. But here's what Fani sounded like when she showed up into church. This one comes from Woke Preacher Clips on X. And here's what it sounded like when she showed up in court. Multiple camera angles. And here's Fani after she went out and screamed at America, "These are lies!" Now she's in the house of God.
Let me tell you something that I've learned very, very recently, because you may need this lesson as well. You know,
if you sleep with a married man and riff thousands of dollars for your lover off the taxpayers.
People keep sending me scriptures, and I appreciate those scriptures, but different people from all different walks of life keep sending me this one scripture, and I don't think I ever really heard it till maybe 2 days ago. People send you stuff, you read them, they just kind of become things you recite, but you don't really think about what they say. The scripture they keep sending me is, "No weapon formed against you shall prosper."
Come on.
I need y'all to hear me though. They did not say the weapons will not form. And that's the part I didn't hear until recently. Just because they won't prosper, it doesn't mean that they won't form. Even if you feel like everything you are doing in your life is the right thing.
Except adultery and conflicts of interest and cheating the taxpayers and going on multiple cruises on their dime. Except for those things.
And you're making mistakes all along the way, but you're trying.
Those little ones I mentioned.
You should not think that those weapons will not form. The other lesson that I've learned in this 3 years is God ordains those weapons. He puts those weapons in your life to form against you. And if you really understand him, you become in your maturity to understand he does it for a reason. And it's to grow you, and it's to make you stronger, and it is to prepare you. And so
I'm doing this for you, Fulton County. We're here for you, right? I am going through this challenge. I'm going to be stronger as a result of it. Yes, I slept with Nathan Wade. Yes, there was a conflict of interest. Yes, I got a financial benefit on this thing. Yes, I lied on my disclosure forms. I don't know what a gift means. Yes, Nathan Wade lied on his interrogatories because he doesn't know what marriage means. We all fibbed about that, lied about that in our affidavit. Then we got Terrence Bradley to lie. Then we destroyed him anyways. All this stuff, right? It's all causing apparently like demonic forces or something, right? To form as weapons to go and attack someone in the light. It's wild, right? Wild. And she's going in a church, and it's not a confessional, right? It's her, I think, rallying support. It's almost like a political speech in church.
Request from this family today is, this is a really hard job I'm trying to do.
I'm sure.
And I am
I'm sure. How many times did you go on cruises in the last couple of months? Multiple cruises, Belize, Napa Valley, and so on. It's really a lot.
Imperfect human being, but I can literally feel the people who loves me's prayers. If just every now and again you'll throw my name in a prayer, God hears his children.
Pray for me.
I would very much appreciate that. So I thank you for this honor today, because it is an honor worth having when it comes from a group of people such as the people that worship here. So thank you.
Okay, so her demeanor was a little bit different. She wasn't screaming at anybody about how they're all lies. And it feels a little uncomfortable to have somebody who was, doing what she was doing come out there and then try to parlay that into some fight for glory. She's now like, I think, a weapon of Jesus. She's like, yes, now I'm under attack, but it's not legitimate. And now I'm going to be stronger as a result of it. Like I'm a weapon of the faith or something. Very uncomfortable. But all right, that's what they're doing over there in Fulton County. And she is circling up, right, going and getting support. And it's all about Fani, right? Sorry for grifting $1 million to give to my lover. Sorry about that. Sorry that I might have totally wrecked what they think is a very important case in Fulton County, which is going to be the Trump prosecution. Sorry that my infidelities may have contributed to the downfall of a marriage, who knows. But she says she's under attack and she needs your love and prayers. All right, maybe Georgians will give it to her, some of them in that building. But here is what a local defense attorney had to say about this. This is an opinion piece over from The Hill, and while we're looking at these amazing looking shoes, pretty good, huh? But here is what the story says. They tell us that the Georgia case, this is from a local Georgia defense attorney, his name is Andre Andrew Fleischman. He says the case against Trump, it may be fatally compromised. Whoa. Here's what he said, just to be sure. He says, in the interest of full disclosure, I am a Fulton County criminal defense lawyer, and I often appeal from Fulton County convictions. Now, we sat here and watched what Fani did, what Nathan Wade did, what Anna Cross did, and how this whole thing unfolded. And we were shocked. We were disgusted by what we saw. But we don't practice there. We don't. Is this normal? Do they just obliterate witnesses on the stand, accuse them of assault with no charges, and, kind of just wreck their credibility? Okay, maybe. But no, it's shocking, okay? Even this defense attorney says, but it honestly shocked me to see the office act this way, Fani's, when it knew others were watching. So this guy's even like, whoa. Here's what he says. This much we know. Fulton County DA had an undisclosed indictment relationship with Nathan Wade and paid him $750,000 in taxpayer money. She also got at least 13 grand worth of meals and vacations. Now, at the disqualification hearing, she defended herself. She said, I paid him back in cash that no one can trace, always withdrawn from a stash, again, that no one can trace. Says that is not good. But what's worse is how the Fulton County conducted the Willis defense. And I think there's a lot of truth to this. Like, they actually made it worse. At the hearing, it came out that Wade's attorney in his divorce proceeding, Terrence Bradley, had spoken with Ashley Merchant about the relationship, and they had done so in text messages. And Terrence said that the motion from Merchant looks good, and that put Willis's team in an impossible situation. Do you argue that Bradley sharing privileged information that couldn't be admitted to the court, meaning that his statement was true, or do you argue that Bradley's untrustworthy? And in a bizarre turn of events, they did both. They just destroyed him, right? In the same proceeding, Fulton County argued that Bradley only knew Nathan Wade had a pre-appointment relationship with Fani because he told his lawyer about it in the divorce proceeding. In other words, that is pro talk. That is professional talk. So he can't talk about them indicting each other before Nathan Wade was appointed. But those same prosecutors had just seen Wade swear under oath that the relationship only began after he was appointed, right? So in other words, the prosecutors knew this dude was lying. They put him on when he was on the stand. They invoked his privilege and defended it, even though they knew that he was lying. And then the next question out of his mouth was a lie, and they knew it. If the communication was privileged, it was also true, and it contradicted the sworn testimony that prosecutors had just seen Nathan Wade give, okay? So their own prosecutor was lying. They know what he's lying because Terrence Bradley was invoking, and they were defending him in that. No one took their ethical duty seriously enough to pause the hearing and to tell him to tell the truth. And then they destroyed him. It was crazy. Or nearly as bad, prosecutors could have known full well that the communication wasn't privileged, which it wasn't, because it was bro talk, as the defense was arguing. They could have agreed. And Bradley knew that what he knew as Wade's law partner, but not his lawyer, right? Bro talk. The government could have acquiesced and said, okay, it's bro talk, talk about it, but they didn't. So they let him lie, even though they knew it was bro talk. And that after Bradley received what seemed to be a glut of messages, apparently telling him not to testify, so all Fani's people were coming and hammering him, don't testify, he decided to falsely swear that the communications were privileged so he couldn't tank the trial, in which case a lawyer obeying her duty of candor to the court should not have argued that his claims were truthful. It was gross. There were other ways that the defense of Fani disappointed. Wade was constantly evasive. Wade claimed, I don't know how many cabins I went to. He claimed that under oath that he had not had any other relationships while married, but he meant while happily married. I really like that line, right? He didn't know what the definition of married was. Yeah, he did, but he just added the word happily in front of it. That's not what the question asked. Wade's a lawyer, apparently a very smart one according to Fani. So he lied on his interrogatories, and Fani lied on her disclosures for public office. Now, meanwhile, Willis bulldozed into the courtroom like the Kool-Aid guy. Oh yeah, into the courtroom with testimony so non-responsive and embittered that the trial court had to threaten to strike her testimony. A remedy, he says, I have never seen employed in a Georgia courtroom, right? An ordinary person who came into the court and acted this way would have probably been taken into custody. Wow, right? I don't practice there. So these little nuances, it's like, okay, interesting. Then there's the simple fact that in an effort to avoid this hearing, Fulton County DAs, they moved for sanctions, okay, against Ashley Merchant. They wanted her to be fined and penalized, claiming she had no good faith as to believe that there was a pre-appointment relationship, despite the fact that they knew full well what Terrence Bradley had told her, whether it was privileged or not. And they did, and they were covering up for Terrence and asking for penalties for her while they knew the truth, and they hid the truth from the court. It was sick. Now, shockingly, the state dealt with Bradley's potentially devastating out-of-court statements with a completely irrelevant allegation of assault. It's crazy. This evidence was not admissible. They didn't charge him with a crime. The entire goal was to hurt him in front of the largest possible audience. And it was brutal. There was no need for that. It was just like torturing someone who didn't need it. The dude was already dead, okay? Judge Scott McAfee is now in an impossible situation. This is a local defense attorney writing. Says any credibility finding he makes about when the relationship started or whether Wade was reimbursed is bound to come under scrutiny. And it's likely that federal and state investigations into those facts will continue long after he makes his decision. And even if McAfee decides that he cannot consider the privileged information to make his determination, there is no reason why the public could not access this information and make its own decision about whether Nathan and Fani told the truth. They didn't. But even without making any findings of credibility here, there's an obvious appearance of impropriety. A judge is being asked to seriously consider whether the sitting DA perjured herself in this proceeding, and I believe she 100% did. If this case were in federal court, disqualification would be a no-brainer. Federal prosecutors are not allowed to participate in cases where someone with whom they have a close personal relationship has a financial interest, substantial. In other words, they can't hire a spouse or a boyfriend to be a special prosecutor. And SCOTUS has also pointed to such rules with approval. And Georgia courts have adopted the reasoning from other cases. Judge McAfee's best option may be to not make any credibility determinations at all, but simply to point to the confirmed conduct and the way that Fulton County lawyers conducted themselves as a basis for disqualification. It was some of the grossest behavior from a government office that we've ever seen, as a defense attorney agrees. Now here, just a reminder, I hate Trump though. There is little doubt in my mind that Trump committed crimes in Georgia, but any competent prosecutor could have just charged him on false statements for one claim. But instead, Fulton County, Fani, they sought to maximize attention and public expenditures, saying, well, of course, for Nathan Wade, $1 million. It is a shame when the corruption and the incompetence at one level of government keeps us from addressing it at another level. But even the guiltiest defendant deserves a fair trial, and it's not clear that Fulton County has the will or the ability to provide one. So great article, local defense attorney. You know, I think he's right on the facts. I still have my reservations about whether the judge ultimately disqualifies her, because I can see the judge splitting this, right? The judge saying, well, yes, they had a relationship. We don't know if there was a financial benefit, but I don't know whether it was material or not to the case. In other words, maybe they'll still do their jobs even if they were indicting each other. Maybe it's not material to the underlying claim. I don't know. If I'm a judge and I had these people come in and lie in my courtroom like they owned the courtroom, I'd be furious and I would disqualify Fulton County and write a blistering response. But we don't know what type of pressures are afoot in Fulton County. In fact, the mayor of Atlanta is now supporting Fani. So she's also in her churches and she's also rallying support from other politicians. And of course, we've got election seasons coming up. And so who knows what's going to happen? Who is putting pressure on whom? What is the White House doing? This judge has a career that he has to think about, and there will be consequences from disqualifying Fani on one of the biggest cases in the country in American history during an election year. So lots of pressure, and now Atlanta and their mayor are joining in on Team Fani.
Atlanta Mayor Andre Dickens is making headlines for more than one reason. He has announced he plans to seek another term in the 2025 mayoral election. Now, in his time since becoming mayor in 2021, Dickens has tackled affordable housing and crime, noting an 18% crime reduction between 2022 and 2023. But he's also been at odds with some citizens over his support of Atlanta's proposed public safety training facility. The mayor releasing a statement from his office regarding his re-election, saying in part, "I love being the mayor of Atlanta, a job I've wanted since I was 16 years old. I believe we have accomplished a lot in the first 2 years, and I intend to work hard in the next 2 years and beyond." And the mayor is also catching the attention of people outside of the metro Atlanta area this morning. He's going public with his defense of Fulton County District Attorney Fani Willis. Now, Willis is trying to fend off an attempt to get her thrown from the racketeering case involving former President Donald Trump.
Atlanta News First Rebecca Schramm is joining us live right now from the Fulton County Courthouse. Rebecca, this comes as a judge in that case has a very important decision to make.
Yeah, very important. Gervier and Brooks, good morning to you. If the judge decides to remove District Attorney Fani Willis and her team from the Trump case, it very well could deliver a fatal blow to that entire case, depending on how everything shakes out. Well, Mayor Andre Dickens decided it was time to stand up for Willis publicly. Take a look. You may have noticed during the disqualification hearing last week, Dickens showed up in the courtroom and stayed for several minutes. Attorneys, former President Trump and some of his co-defendants are trying to disqualify.
He showed up in court. Now, we didn't see that, but apparently that's him, right? Where they're testifying, showing up in solidarity.
Willis in her office, in part because of her romantic relationship relationship with the special prosecutor she hired to oversee the case. As the mayor now launches a campaign for a second term, he's determined to make public safety a priority. And he says District Attorney Fani Willis has been instrumental in bringing down crime in the city. Here's part of what Mayor Dickens said in an interview on CNN.
Yeah, absolutely. I had to go to the courtroom the second day to just lay eyes on her and let her see me. And for her
She wasn't
to know
there the
that
second
she's
day.
got supportive, compassionate leaders in the audience. You know, when you're going through something like this, you don't want to be made to feel alone. Women are under attack all across America, and she shouldn't be made to feel alone. So I went to see.
Women are under attack. Is this an epidemic that we're not familiar with? Are DAs all across America sleeping with their special counsel and grifting $1 million to prosecute their opponents, and they're all under attack? Oh no, we better do something about this. They're all indicting their boyfriends, and we have to support our women who lie to the court in their filings.
Her, and then I went and talked to her and told her, you know, I had her back and, you know, wanted her to know that she didn't have to feel like folks weren't supportive of her.
Now, as for what's next for the DA, a judge will basically review some evidence that's going to be submitted under seal, and then he could schedule another hearing for as soon as this Friday.
We're looking forward to it. We also had some reaction from another local prosecutor, a DeKalb County prosecutor. He says there's not enough here, man. Everything is perfectly above board, right? It was all salacious stuff. So here's another clip from local news, and we're going to hear from this guy. This has some good clips as well.
Well, tonight we are awaiting the next steps in the Georgia election interference case.
During a hearing last week, attorneys for former President Donald Trump and 8 of his co-defendants pushed to disqualify Fulton County District Attorney Fani Willis and her team from trying the case over allegations of misconduct.
11 Live's Grace King joining us live in the studio now. So Grace, I want to say the entire world was watching this testimony.
Yeah,
2 days of testimony last week. You were paying very close attention to it. Where do things go from here?
Well, that was the evidentiary hearing where both sides presented witnesses and documents to build their case. But next, Judge McAfee will set what's called a summation hearing.
Good.
That's where both sides will make their arguments to the judge. And then after that, Judge Scott McAfee will have to rule on whether to keep or disqualify District Attorney Fani Willis and or Special Prosecutor Nathan Wade. I spoke with former DeKalb County DA Robert James about the likelihood of that.
It is a lie. It is a lie.
As tensions flared in the Fulton County Courthouse, former DeKalb County District Attorney Robert James listened closely.
A lot of drama, a lot of bombshells, a lot of entertainment for some people, depending on your perspective or take.
It was entertaining,
but ultimately,
that's for sure.
The issue is whether or not DA Fani Willis financially benefited from hiring Nathan Wade.
To him, the 2 days of testimony from District Attorney Fani Willis, Special Prosecutor Nathan Wade, and about half a dozen others didn't show proof of a conflict or even the appearance of such.
In this case, that impropriety has to be financial benefit, financial gain, and not the fact that they were having a romantic relationship. You know.
Well, there was a lot of gain there. She went on multiple cruises, and her lover wouldn't have been able to go if he didn't have money and income. So not only did he pay for stuff for her, but he also went, and that's a benefit, right? He wouldn't have been able to go on cruises. She wouldn't have had her boyfriend with her had he not had that income that she was giving to him.
It can't just be related. It's got to be proof, and the defendants have the burden of showing that DA Fani Willis financially benefited. She doesn't have to prove anything or disprove anything.
What could matter is when the Wade-Willis relationship started.
The judge, wanted to look at, when financial gain may have started and whether or not that happened when she was making the hire.
A man who may know that answer is Terrence Bradley, Nathan Wade's former law partner and one-time divorce attorney.
I did not have personal knowledge.
Bradley claims almost everything he knows about the relationship is protected by attorney-client privilege. But a late afternoon exchange Friday prompted Judge Scott McAfee to re-examine whether his privilege applies.
When asked by the state, he went into a factual scenario that, to my mind, I don't see how it relates to privilege at all. And so now I'm left wondering if Mr. Bradley has been properly interpreting privilege this entire time.
No, he has not.
Now that outstanding question will determine whether Bradley will be called back to the stand before oral arguments begin. As for when this could all happen, Judge Scott McAfee says he anticipates this case will be back on court on Friday or next week.
We'll see. All right, my friends. So we're going to be, of course, covering this when it does drop. But Fani is rallying support, circling the wagons, going to another church and asking for their prayers, along with getting the mayor, Andre, to show up in court, say, we've got your back because we protect women against infidelity accusations, I guess. So we're going to be covering it, my friends. Thank you for joining us as we do. Going to be a lot of Trump prosecution news here. We're going to be covering it all. Thanks for subscribing. Thanks for liking this video wherever you're watching. watching it. Thanks for inviting a friend or family member to come and join us. Thanks for checking out watcherlodge.com. Links are in the description below. We got a bunch of free events coming up this month. We'd love to have you join us. They're taking place on Zoom. They're going to be a lot of fun, and we'll look forward to seeing you there and back here on the next one.